Hey everyone, happy college football. Welcome to Porcelain Picks. I'm your host, Andrew Fabian, and it's a Friday afternoon ahead of championship week. The regular season in college football is behind us. It seems like just yesterday we were sitting here Labor Day weekend anticipating the season to come, and it's over in the blink of an eye. Well, not quite yet. We've got some good action this weekend with two games we're going to be picking tonight. We've got a Joey MAC Maction Lock of the Week for the MAC Championship game tomorrow, as well as a Locksmiths Lock of the Week for the SEC Championship, in addition to the rest of my picks. All right, we come into this game this weekend 137, 127, and 1. So plus 2.4 units on the year so far. That's a slim, razor-thin margin. We're going to expand that here over the course of the next couple weeks as we approach the college football playoff until we get through this championship weekend, all right? So let's dive into the action because we at Porcelain Picks are here to deliver the locks you need as you scroll atop the porcelain throne. We'll dive in. We got Friday night. We got a Mountain West championship game. Big game between UNLV and Boise State. It's being played in Boise, Idaho on the blue field. Boise is a 4.5-point favorite. This is a rematch of a game earlier this year in which UNLV, really one of the only teams to somewhat keep Ashton Jeanty in check. They held him to one touchdown on a goal line plunge. They held him to fewer than 16 yards on his longest carry. So his longest carry was 16 yards in that first matchup. That's the lowest of its type so far this season. So look for UNLV to continue that game planning against Boise. But Boise, they put up points. Both these teams put up points. You see UNLV this year. Boise State kept it close against Oregon. UNLV has some impressive wins. They beat Syracuse this year, and we saw what Syracuse did to Miami last week, finishing the year 9-3 on their front. I like the under in this game. I'm just going to jump right into that. 57.5 is too high. It's going to be a cold day. I think UNLV is going to, again, try to shut down Jeanty, as so many teams have. I think they hold him to one touchdown and about 150 yards. And believe it or not, that's a poor game for Jeanty. I think he was a little bit snubbed on the Heisman rankings. I think Travis Hunter is going to win that. So he may come out of the gate and run for 8 touchdowns this game. Who knows? I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a low-scoring affair. I actually think UNLV might win this as the flat-out underdog, but we're going to stay away from the spread and take the under. 57.5, lock it, flush it. All right, American Athletic Conference, Tulane at Army. Army, great season so far. They tripped up a couple times once down the stretch, really getting demolished by Notre Dame, who exposed them. Tulane has a couple blemishes on the schedule. They were ranked 17th in the country before dropping to Memphis just last week. They had a chance to go to the playoff this year had they won this game, and had they not lost last week as the Group of 5 representative. It could have happened. It's not going to happen. But in any event, they're still going to be playing for a lot on the line. They're a 5-point favorite here at Army. Over-under set at 45.5. The comparables here, I think Tulane, what they did against Navy this year, I think matters. Army's a better team than Navy for sure, but similar style offenses. Tulane was able to hold Navy, beat them 35-0. They have a running game of their own. It's not just Army bringing the running game to this one. I think Tulane's running back, his name is Mekhi Hughes. He's rushed for over 1,300 yards already in the AAC this year. He was locked down against Memphis, but look for him to get rolling against Army. This is going to be a cold game in West Point, so the running games are going to matter. It's a game that's going to be tough to make tackles. Got to see which guys are going out and want to make tackles. Army's quarterback, we know Bryson Daly. This guy is an incredible athlete. He's going to get his. He's going to score at least one touchdown this game. But look for the passing game to be the difference here. I think this is going to be a game where both teams run the ball pretty effectively against one another. The clock's going to continue to tick. But I think Darian Mensah on the Tulane side is going to get some great plays here and be able to stretch this out for a Tulane victory. I like Tulane. The Wave, they're going to win by more than 5, so take that spread, lock it, flush it. I also like the under in this game. I think it's going to be a lower scoring affair, something like it could be 20-14, something like that, 21-14. So take the under as well, 45.5. Lock them both, flush them both. Let's go to Saturday. All right, we got Joey MAC, Maction Lock of the Week in the MAC Championship game. All eyes will be on this game. at noon as the Ohio Bobcats and Miami, Ohio face off here in the battle for Ohio. The only two Ohio-based teams playing in conference championship games this week. Little wink of the eye to Ohio State Buckeyes who are sitting at home. Miami, Ohio comes into this game -1.5, so they're favorites. The over-under set at 44.5. I really lean towards Miami, Ohio here. So does Joey MAC. It doesn't matter what I think. It's Joey MAC's pick. He usually stays away from these Red Hawks. The Spread Hawks are going to take this one, according to Joey MAC. Take them -1.5, lock it, flush it. Chuck Martin gets them going. He disrupts Ohio's offense and the momentum they've built throughout November, going 4-0 in November. When these two teams met up back in October, Miami was up 30-6 before Ohio got a couple late scores to make it more respectable at 30-20. So look for the Red Hawks, the Spread Hawks, to cover, lock it, flush it. That's Joey Mac's Maction Lock of the Week. My pick in this game is under. Take the under 44.5. I think it's going to be some trickery from Chuck Martin, some gamesmanship. I like this to be a lower scoring affair that Miami, Ohio pulls out. All right, move on. Big 12, also playing at noon. You got Iowa State and Arizona State. Big matchup here. Not a lot of people probably who are watching this watched any of Ohio State or Arizona State this year. But Iowa State's got Rocco Beck. He's the better quarterback in this game. Iowa State's going to try to pass the ball. They can put up points on you in a hurry. Arizona State, they run the ball. They've got Cam Scatabo, one of the best running backs in the country. This guy is a challenge for any defense he goes up against. So which one's going to give? You got a passing offense. You got a rushing offense. We think that Arizona State's going to be able to move the ball. They are without Jordan Tyson, one of their best wide receivers. So can Iowa State's suspect run defense hold them accountable to that, make them throw the ball, make them one-dimensional? We'll see if that happens. I like the under in this game as well. You'll notice a trend there. Under 49.5 is the pick. Lock it, flush it. I think both teams are going to struggle a bit to move the football. Rocco Beck is going to get a couple touchdowns in this game, but Arizona State's going to control the time of play. I think Arizona State wins this game, but we're staying away. Let's go with the under, 49.5. Lock it, flush it. All right, SEC Championship. We got a Locksmith Lock of the Week coming in from PTC for this game. I'll give a little analysis before jumping into that. But we got Texas coming in as a 2.5-point favorite in the rematch against Georgia. Over-under set at 49.5. All right, on the Texas side, you got Quinn Ewers. He was a little battered and beat up the last few weeks. You saw him able to run the football in that victory against Texas A&M last week to clinch the SEC championship game in their first season in the SEC. You could argue that Texas had an easy route to get here. They only had to play Georgia who, at the top of the conference, and the Texas A&M obviously is respectable, but they did not have to play Bama. They did not have to play Tennessee and a couple of the other top dogs. So back to Ewers. I think he's going to get some momentum in this game coming off that defeat that they had at Georgia or against Georgia at home. I think Arch Manning is going to have some game planning towards him. Texas, Steve Sarkisian, he watched that Georgia Tech game last week. You want to believe that. Georgia Tech and Haynes King. Haynes King is like a poor man's Arch Manning. Great quarterback. He can run on his own. I think they're going to try to mimic some of that with Arch Manning against Georgia. Haynes King went up and down the field on Georgia last week. Georgia's lucky to escape that game and still be relevant. But they are. So, Georgia, last time these two teams played, was the beneficiary of 4 drives starting in plus territory in which they scored. They won that game 30-15, fair and square. They deserved those turnovers and that good field position. I just don't see that happening again in this game. On the Georgia offensive side, you got Carson Beck. He had 3 interceptions in that first game with Texas. Texas's secondary is one of the best in the country. If he does anywhere near that again, watch out for Texas here in this game. But Carson Beck needs to play his A game to win this game. We'll see what happens. Georgia doesn't have the weapons that they had last year and the year before. There's no Brock Bowers type playmaker on the outside. Their best player, their best threat on offense, Trevor Etienne, is injured. He had 3 touchdowns in the first meetup between these two teams. He's expected to potentially play, but will he be at 100%? Not so sure on that. All right, so I'm going to take, after all that, the Texas Longhorns to cover, -2.5. They take home the SEC crown in their first year in the league, coming from the Big 12. Lock it, flush it. The Locksmith Lock of the Day with all that I said. PTC mentioned Georgia's defense a bit suspect this year. They gave up 21 points to UMass earlier in the year. They gave up 31 points to Mississippi State. They allowed Georgia Tech to go up and down the field and score on them. Look for a high-scoring affair, says PTC. The Locksmiths lock of the week, over 49.5. Lock it, flush it. Let's go. 8 p.m. window, prime time. We got ACC championship. Clemson versus SMU. This game could either provide chalk for the playoffs, or it could provide a lot of discussion about who's deserving. If Clemson wins, that's the only way they make the playoffs. They get an automatic bye in all likelihood. If SMU wins, the same would be true. SMU is number 8 in the country right now. The debate will be, if Clemson wins this game, SMU, do they deserve to get in? Will the committee bump Bama out, or will the committee take the brand of Alabama aside from resume, put the resumes aside, throw out SMU? You're going to see a lot of debate if Clemson pulls this one away. But lucky for you SEC fans, SMU is going to take care of business. Bama will be in the playoff because SMU is going to win this game. -2.5, lock it, flush it. And I think the reason why, look at past matchups for Clemson. Look at where they struggle. They struggled against Georgia. They struggled against Louisville. They struggled against South Carolina. All 3 of their losses were up against defenses that could pass rush, put pressure on Cade Klubnik. Their wins, when they put up points early, that happens because Klubnik has a lot of time on his hands to get it out to his weapons. SMU poses a pretty solid pass defense. So look for them to get some pressure on Klubnik, get his wheels churning. Klubnik is going to have to get a lot done on the ground, which he has done a great job of so far this season. But I like SMU. They beat Louisville, that same team that came out and beat Clemson by 2 scores. And Kevin Jennings on the SMU side is the X factor for that offense. He can run the ball. He hasn't had to run the ball much the last 4 weeks. They've still gotten the job done. He can throw it through the air. They're going to get the job done. It's a must-win game for them. They're going to look at it that way. Same thing with Clemson and Dabo, but I think Dabo yaps and talks a lot. I like SMU to just get it done. Lock it, flush it, -2.5. Let's move on. We got Big Ten championship game, the last pick of the week. We got Penn State, my boys, my Nittany Lions. Lucky to be here with Ohio State dropping to Michigan. They face Oregon, the Ducks. Again, first year in the Big Ten. A lot of first conference showings for teams like this with Oregon. First time in the Big Ten. They're in the championship. Texas, same thing in the SEC. SMU, same thing in the ACC. Oregon's a 3.5-point favorite in this game, and deservedly so. These guys are the only undefeated team in college football. Dillon Gabriel, excellent season, especially when he's not under pressure. A little bit more on that in a second. But he gets his weapon, Tez Johnson, back. These guys have wide receiver threats on the outside to really challenge the Penn State secondary. This is a spot where Ohio State was not really able to get a lot of separation with their wide receivers, but Oregon has that threat at tight end. I think they're going to be able to get some passing yards here on Penn State. Also on the Oregon side, their defense, it's not talked about enough. They've got a very stingy defense, especially that front seven. They're going to be able to get some pressure on Drew Aller. Aller has done a great job protecting the ball when he's under pressure, but look for him to have to run, look for some check downs and things like that. And from the Penn State side, hopefully for Andy Kotelnicki, he's game planning for that and for what to do under pressure. All right, so Oregon, interior offensive line is their weakness, if you want to call it a weakness. That's where Penn State really has to challenge them. Penn State's pass rush is also very solid, similar to Oregon's. Guys like Denny Dennis Sutton are going to be out there with Abdul Carter potentially being double teamed. Have to get some pressure here on Dillon Gabriel, get him out of the pocket, get him making mistakes. That's Penn State's key to victory. The Penn State is going to give up some yardage in this game. It's about getting pressure, getting a turnover if they're going to stay close. Drew Aller, he has been battle-tested this season. You saw the comeback against USC, who obviously fell off a cliff, but it was still a solid comeback, being down 2 touchdowns in the second half. You saw him come up big when it counted against Maryland last week. And really just get the rubber stamp and the spot into this game. So look for Penn State to be able to move the football some. They're going to have to get Nick Singleton running along with Keenan Allen on the outside, Katron Allen on the outside. These guys are going to have to run the football if they're going to get any chance of victory here against Oregon. All right, Tyler Warren, of course, the X factor for Penn State. This guy is do-it-all gadget player. The biggest upside he has in this game is going up against those Oregon safeties, not quite as dominant as the Ohio State game. Ohio State was able to lock down Tyler Warren with Caleb Downs out there at safety. Oregon doesn't pose as big of a threat there, so potentially getting Warren behind those linebackers and getting him into the mix with a football could be an answer for Penn State. All right, this is going to be a great game. It pains me to do this, but I'm going to take Oregon -3.5. I think they pull this one out at the end. I think they just have too much firepower on the offensive side for Penn State to keep up. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going with my head and not my heart. Take the Ducks -3.5. Lock it, flush it. Both teams are in the playoff anyway. All right, those are your picks for championship weekend. For Joey MAC, for the Locksmiths and PTC, I'm Andrew Fabian. Happy college football, everyone. Enjoy.